Welcome to aminacademy.com. In world history, let us discuss about agriculture and the Neolithic Revolution. Historian Lauren Ristwitz defines agriculture as the domestication of plants, causing it to change genetically from its wild ancestor in ways that make it more useful to human consumers. She and hundreds of other scholars, from Hobbes to Marx, have pointed to the Neolithic Revolution, that is, the move from hunter gatherer world to an agricultural one. The Neolithic Revolution was the critical transition that resulted in the birth of agriculture, taking Homo sapiens from scattered groups of hunter gatherers to forming village and farm there to technologically sophisticated societies with great temples and towers and kings and priests who directed to the labor of their. The Neolithic Revolution, also known as the Agricultural Revolution, was a major shift in human history when people began to transition from hunting and gathering to agriculture. When it happened, the Neolithic Revolution began around 10,000 to 5,000 years ago and at the end of the last ice age. It began in the Fertile Crescent, a boomerang-shaped region in the Middle East. A Neolithic revolution led to the development of the first urban civilization, and the global population increased from 5 million to 8 billion people. How it changed the people lives. The Neolithic revolution changed how people lived, ate, and interacted and led to a more settled lifestyle. Neolithic farmers used tools made from flint, obsidian, and polished stone to cut food, reap cereals, and till the soil. The reason why the people began farming varied by location, but some possible factors include climatic changes and increased pressure on natural food resources. When we start to examine other factors that allowed humans to transition to agriculture, we find that the climate factor looms even larger. For example, agriculture was usually accompanied by sedentarism, but we see communal living and permanent settlement among multiple groups of hunter-gatherers. Homo sapiens had also begun to domesticate animals and plants alike during the Pleistocene. Humans were already being buried alongside dogs as early as 14,000 years ago. Next one, the first villages in India started about 7,000 years ago. The agriculture started 7,000 years ago during the Neolithic age. In these villages, people learned to grow crops in fields. In places like Mehrgarh and Birana, farmers grew wheat and barley during the Neolithic age. They made fields by clearing land. Next one, first farmer of West Asia or Fertile Crescent. In later chapters, we will discuss about Mesopotamia, the area between Euphrates and Tigris rivers, that agriculture would make the cradle of civilization. Now, however, the incommuter of Mesopotamian and Fertile Crescent agriculture and cultural pattern dated back to the forages of the nearby eastern Mediterranean. Thousands of years before, the rye, barley, and wheat is Vestas wheat. They thousands of years before. The rye, barley, and wheat in West Asia were first harvested by late Plainstone foragers called Kebarans who ground wild wheat and barley into a porridge. The Fertile Crescent is a crescent-shaped region in the Middle East that is believed to be the first place where settled farming emerged. Some of the earliest evidence of farming in a Fertile Crescent comes from the archaeological site of Tel Abu Huraira in Syria, where scientists have found signs of rye cultivation around 11,700 years ago. Here are some other developments in the Fertile Crescent that are related to the origins of agriculture. The domestication of animals such as sheep, goats, cows, and pigs began around the same time as the domestication of plants. Irrigation. The Sumerians developed an advanced irrigation system for farming using ditches, canals, and other structures to transport water to crops. The Sumerians were one of the earliest civilizations to flourish in the Fertile Crescent, and they built on Egyptian technology. Another permanent settlement in Southwest Asia seems to have been more directly responsible for the decision to actually domesticate grains rather than simply cultivate wild varieties. In that, Abu Huraira in Syria was deeply affected by the Younger Dryas events of 11,000 years ago, an event which caused many of their wild food staples to disappear. Rather than migrating out of the area, the Abu Hurairans cultivated rye. Soon afterward, other sites in the Levant began to see the planting of barley, while wheat was cultivated in both the Levant and Anatolia. Next, we'll discuss about first permanent settlement in West Asia. The transition from foraging to collecting to cultivating took place over several centuries, but these gradual changes did so to mark a very distinct era of permanent settlement during the Neolithic period. Increased rainfall around 9600 BCE meant that the Jordan River would swell yearly. That means in the process of depositing layers of fertile soil along its banks. This fertile soil allowed locals to rely on agriculture for survival. Soon after, they founded Jericho, just north of the Dead Sea, perhaps the very first time in human history that a completely viable population was living in the same place at the same time. By Jericho's height around 9000 BCE, the settlement populations reached the hundreds. This increase cannot be considered an urban boom, of course, and the transition away from foraging occurred gradually. For example, excavations from this area have unearthed no separation of tasks of dwelling by gender or skills. The first permanent settlement in the Fertile Crescent was Sumer, which was settled by humans between 4500 and 4000 BC. The Sumerians were among the first to develop civilization, and their culture included city-states, art, literature, and writing. One of the oldest known Mesopotamian cities, Nineveh, near Mosul in modern Iraq, may have been settled as early as 6000 years BC. Sumer civilization arose in the Tower Tigris Euphrates Valley around 5000 BC. Here are some of the achievements of the Sumerians. Farming and cattle raising. The Ubaid people who settled Sumer were known for farming and raising cattle. The Ubaid people also worked with the textile and pottery. The Sumerians invented cuneiform script, one of the earliest form of writing. The Sumerians pioneered the use of canals and levees for irrigation. The Sumerians built large stepped pyramids called ziggurats. The Sumerians wrote the epic Gilgamesh, a 3,000 line poem about a Sumer king's adventures. The Sumerians were the first great civilization in the region now known as the Middle East, which is widely considered the cradle of civilization. Now, leaving Paleolithic culture behind. While the Neolithic era is described in greater detail elsewhere, it is important to understand Paleolithic and Neolithic differences in order to convey a sense of just how revolutionary the shift to agriculture was for humanity. For example, agriculture contributed to, along with religion and trade, the development of class. Before agriculture, hunter gatherers divided tasks like seed gathering, grinding, or tool making. However, without large scale building projects like aqueducts or canals required for agriculture, hierarchies were much less pronounced. The intensification of agriculture during the Neolithic required irrigation, plowing, and terracing, all of which were labor intensive. The amount of labor required could not be met through simple task division. How someone had to be in charge. This meant the establishment of ruling elites, a societal grouping that had not existed during the Paleolithic. While violence certainly existing during the Paleolithic period, organized warfare was an invention of the Neolithic. Agriculture meant larger population and settlement that were more tightly packed and closer to one another. Leaving Paleolithic culture behind, the Paleolithic era ended with the transition to the Neolithic period when humans began to domesticate plants and animals and settle in permanent dwellings. This transition occurred at different times in different parts of the world but is generally thought to have happened around 10,000 BCE. Some of the ways to humans left behind evidence of their Paleolithic culture, including Paleolithic humans left behind cave paintings, rock art, and jewelry. They also carved figurines from stone, clay, bones, and antlers. Paleolithic humans made tools from stone, including flint choppers, flax, and wooden shafts. Some important Paleolithic sites in India includes Bhimbetka, Rohiri, Nivesa, and Samnapur. Next one, we'll talk about Paleolithic women. For centuries, historians and scientists mostly agreed that when early humans groups sought found, men hunted and women gathered. However, at 9,000-year-old female hunter burial discovered in the Andes Mountains of what is now Peru may have changed science forever. Neolithic woman. What was the role of women in the Neolithic era? The taming of wild plants, the domestication of animals, and cultivating previously barren lands were audacious endeavor, and women stood at the forefront of this revolution. While men hunted, it was primarily women who foraged, developing an intimate knowledge of local plant life. Next one, we'll talk further about Paleolithic and Neolithic woman. Look at here. Further about, we'll talk about Paleolithic woman. First about Neolithic woman. While Paleolithic woman certainly had important responsibilities, the added task of herding and animal domestication expanded their roles tremendously in the Neolithic era. Neolithic survival required not only effective food storage but also increased production. Children on a farm can be more helpful and put in less danger than those on hunt. Neolithic women increasingly bore more children, either because of increased food production or to help augment it. This increase in childbearing may also have offset in an increase in mortality due. For example, the disease for about the disease, that is the disease will not affect the people they take care. Because danger from disease grew in new village due to the ease with which deadly diseases spread in close quarters. While Neolithic women carried an increased childbearing responsibilities, their other responsibilities did not necessarily wane. Though women may not have fired pottery when it began to appear some 6,000 years ago, they appeared on it in decorative symbols of female fertility. Now we will move towards first civilization from next videos. We will discuss the Bronze Age elsewhere, but we should mention here that new pursuits like mining added to the domestic burden on women. The advent of Bronze Age led to far spread searching and mining for copper and other metals like arsenic or tin to harden it and create the bronze alloy. This will discuss in future videos. We have done. So far we discussed about agriculture and Neolithic revolutions and more explanation in that. We have done. Please subscribe our YouTube channel.